very interesting Göbeklitepe, very interesting about Göbeklitepe, and this ties in with my work as a geologist, is that Göbeklitepe, I'm convinced based on the evidence, literally straddles the end of the last ice age. It literally straddles. What I mean by that is that parts of Göbeklitepe, as we know it from the excavations, go back to before 9700 BC. I'm 100% convinced of that based on the evidence. And parts of it are just after 9700 BC, 9700 BC being the end of the last ice age. And we know geologically that on the Earth, there was incredible catastrophe, violent geological changes. It's been documented there was an increase in earthquakes and volcanic activity at the end of the last ice age over a very, very, very short period. We're talking a year or so, less than a year. As I mentioned previously, we can now attribute this to the sun, a solar outburst, which caused all kinds of melting, release of pressure, etc., on the surface of the Earth, which caused earthquake activity, increased earthquake activity. We also now know that there are correlations, even in the modern day, between solar activity and earthquake activity. Apparently, a lot of pressures build up along fault lines, and what seem like minor changes in electrical properties, to put it very simply, due to the sun and solar activity, can trigger earthquakes. So these types of things were happening at the end of the last ice age, including, as I've mentioned before, incredible precipitation and flooding due to all the moisture in the atmosphere. So the Göbekli Tepe people were experiencing these catastrophes, and we see evidence of this on site at Göbekli Tepe. We see broken pillars. We see pillars that were broken and knocked down. And when you look at the site, you can see how the Göbekli Tepe people hurriedly tried to re-erect them. There are pillars that are literally broken and knocked down. Then they took the slabs of some of the broken pillars, stacked them up, and put the top of one of the pillars back into position. They built secondary walls, and this is a very important aspect. There are these crude secondary walls built between the pillars to form what are sometimes called circular-like enclosures. Those are not original. And I get a little upset because I've looked at this very closely as a geologist when some people think or even perpetuate the concept that the Göbekli Tepe people were building these erecting these incredible pillars with beautiful carvings on them, and then somehow the next day they were building these crude stone walls that covered up the carvings and whatnot. No, those walls are a secondary structure. And so what I've pushed together is that the enclosures with the pillars, they were freestanding pillars, or maybe at some point there was some kind of roofing over them. That's not the issue now, or some kind of framework over them, but I think they were looking out to the sky. But the point is that the pillars did not have those walls initially between them. Those pillars got knocked over, they got broken, they were re-erected. Walls were secondarily put in place, maybe and partly to hold up the pillars that were now being repositioned, and they were very careful about how they were positioning the tops of the broken pillars to get them back into alignment. And they were building these crude walls to sort of hold it all together, almost like they're fortifying it. They're trying to refurbish it quickly as these catastrophes from the sun are happening. And then eventually, as far as I can tell, and this is putting into bigger context of what was happening at the end of the last ice age and all the catastrophes, it seems that it became, I'll put it this way, too much. Things were just continuing to go downhill, if you would, and apparently they made the decision to cover the entire site. And that makes sense if you want to preserve it as you have these catastrophes going on. So did they cover it to maybe like a time capsule for people to find later? Did they cover it because that way they could come back to it and dig it out and refurbish it again? I can't say for certain, but it still sticks in my mind how Klaus Schmidt made the comment, and he published this also, that they spent as much energy essentially burying it, covering it over, as they did to build it. Now, there's sort of two different things: to build and carve such a sophisticated thing, and then to cover it over with dirt and debris. But I can tell you as a geologist, covering it with dirt and debris, given the catastrophic situation at the end of the last ice age, that would be about the best way to preserve it. And then be able to come back to it later. So we have, in summary, in my assessment, looking at it, really good evidence that Göbekli Tepe goes back before the end of the last ice age portions of it. It suffered, it's like a snapshot in time of what was happening at the end of the last ice age. And then right after the catastrophes, or as they were going on, how they were trying to preserve things and rebuild it. And this all ties in with solar activity.